It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show. I'm going to really encourage you, if you missed the last show, go to yourpersonalbank.com, check it out. I really talk a lot about the attacks on our personal freedoms, the vaccine mandates, how that's going to really could easily affect our country, our society, our economy, your money, all those things. Really encourage you, again, yourpersonalbank.com. Check it out. You can listen to any of the previously recorded shows. Don't miss it. I was also in the last show, I was talking about 9/11 and some of the where we were, and 20 years later, where we are now. And like I was talking about in the last show, how we were unified for a short period against a common enemy, and how we've become more and more divided ever since. And really, like I've been saying for a while, I think, again, my opinion, we're probably the most divided we've ever been as a country since the Civil War. Now, are we going to go to war? Gosh, I hope not. That would be ugly. My family lived that. My dad escaped, Hungary from the Soviets, like I've said many times. He lived through a war, literally, and got away from it, thankfully, and that's how I ended up here. I was born here. And I know I'm blessed as a result. And I guess I've said this many, many times. If you are taking your freedoms for granted, do yourself a favor. Talk to an immigrant, a legal immigrant, that is. I qualify that. Particularly somebody who left a country that was being persecuted, a Soviet, communist, Marxist, dictatorship type country, or first generation can do too, but particularly an immigrant. They will give you a perspective. They will open your eyes. Let's just put it that way. What we're dealing with right now is what I consider it's a war on what type of society. It's a war of ideas on what type of society we're going to be going forward. Basically, we were given an unprecedented level of freedoms by our founding fathers. One of the most free societies in history, in human history. It wasn't perfect. Not everybody had freedoms. I get that. Over time, women and African Americans and folks like that gained freedoms over time, so it's gotten better. It's not gotten worse. That's what's so ironic about this. We've expanded freedoms to more and more people over the history of the country, not less. That's the facts. But anyway, we've been basically a society of opportunity, the land of opportunity. You talk to any legal immigrant, even the illegal ones come here. I understand why they come. They want opportunity. And we've been known as the land of opportunity for a couple of centuries. Yet, we have some folks now, particularly in leadership, who seem to want to control others. And I've never understood that. I really struggled understanding that. I've really been spending some time, in essence, learning from the other side, trying to understand why. Why is it that there are people who want to control? Because, see, again, my perspective is I love freedom so much that I just assume, I think like most people would, that they would want freedom also. But unfortunately, we have a group of people in this country who happen to be in charge of government, media, education, Hollywood, who want more control. They want to dominate others. They want control over others. They want to dictate to others how to live and how to think, which they've realized gives them more power. And with more power, you gain more money. So I've come to realize and come to understand, although I don't agree with it in any stretch of the imagination, I think it's intellectually dishonest. It's just sad. It's just sad that there's people that want to dominate you. But hey, we were all in school, or if we were in school, we had a bully. There were bullies out there in this world. I get it. And they want more for themselves. And by their attitude is they're going to take it from you and I, right? Now, where I really struggled, here's where I really struggled, was the supporters. I kind of get the leadership, because I mean, you look at the leadership of any communist or dictatorship type of, or even socialist type government, and I'm talking about China, Russia, Cuba, Eastern Europe, Western Europe. The leaders, the people, the elites, they have tremendous levels of power, and they live a different life than the average by a long shot. What's ironic is why I didn't understand is why they want that is that in capitalism, the same thing can be true, but so many of these international capitalists we have now, many of these companies get most of their profits from China, not the United States, even if they're based in the U.S. And so they kind of have come to learn and work with that system, and they've learned and recognized the efficiencies of that system. I mean, you can't argue that if you want to shut down, look what China did when they wanted to shut down the country to stop the spread of coronavirus. If you're a communist country, it's much more effective than what we had here, right? The efficiencies create more power, more money, and that appeals to those international business leaders where, frankly, many of their loyalties don't lie with the United States. It lies with China because that's where the money is. But the supporters of all this, that's the part that I struggled with for a long time until I come to realize that the supporters who prefer socialism, basically, these are the people that want government to take care of them. They want someone to take care of them. And the government is a natural person, the natural person to do that, or organization to do that. See, this is a war of hearts and minds, folks. In other words, if you believe you're a victim, or you believe you can't do better for yourself, you want to be taken care of. And that's a natural human reaction. Now, I'm going to use an example of anybody who's been on or through an Indian reservation. And you've seen there's tremendous levels of poverty. Heartbreaking. Okay? I've been close to it. For example, my mom taught on the Navajo Indian reservation for several years. I visited with her, talked with her many times. I went and saw her classroom, things like that. And the thing she talked about all the time that was heartbreaking for her was the lack of belief. She teaching high school students, and she talked about her goal was to get one or two just to believe in themselves enough to, in essence, get off the reservation and accomplish something with their lives, something better. And understand like she said, scholarships and the ability to get these things is super easy, and it's gotten even easier. So, you're a Native American or whatever, the ability to get college paid for has never been easier. Your ability to get an education and get off the reservation and do something has probably never been easier. Yet, in a class of, like she would say, 30, 35, 40 students even, she'd be lucky to get one or two to believe in themselves, even to submit the applications. Most of them wouldn't even submit the app for a scholarship or whatever, or admissions, because their attitude was, why bother? I wouldn't be accepted anyway. There was a hopelessness there that was pervasive. And the reason behind it is it's been a multi-generational dependency. Even the National Park Service has signs if you go to a park and it says don't feed the animals because they become dependent. Folks, human nature is no different. If you do everything for some folks, eventually the vast majority of them will just give up hope. My manager of my first business, I owned a retail plant nursery in Glendale, Arizona. I'm going back over 20 years now. That was my first business. And my manager was a full-blooded Kiowa Indian. Sharp guy, very intelligent, loved working with him. But we had many discussions over a couple of year period about how he pointed out that almost everybody he knew, he was born and grew up on the reservation. eventually left because, as he pointed out, I just had to get out of there. I had to leave, or I would have ended up staying the rest of my life there and accomplished nothing. And he had very little communication with those people because, as he put it, it was a pull, it was a drag. It would pull him down. And it was heartbreaking to him, too, because he tried to bring help and bring some people he knew and some friends with little success to do something different, accomplish something different. This guy was tremendously knowledgeable, tremendously intelligent, likable person, all of those things. He had great qualities, okay, as an individual. He had great capability. And many of his friends and other Native Americans do too, but they just don't see it. Folks, if you don't believe in yourself, if you have no hope, then the government giving you some money or giving you food stamps or giving you rent assistance or giving you unemployment or giving all those other things sounds like a great deal. It's better than you can do. And see, again, I never understood that mentality because thankfully I didn't grow up with that mentality. I wasn't around it growing up. And I was fortunate that way. Many of us are. But unfortunately, this mentality has become much more pervasive in our society because of what's being taught, the educational system and all this dependency. And it is devastating. It holds people back. They give up hope. So when they're in that situation, you kind of start to understand why they get excited when the government sends them a check or gives them benefits or gives them this or gives them that, steal from the rich, give to the poor, those kinds of things. And a lot of people call them lazy. And I suppose there's some of that. There's some of that is true. But really, I think the real thing is there's some that are lazy and take advantage of the system, certainly. But I think the real problem, the real injustice here that's being done is these people are getting given a lack of hope. And when you lose hope, you lose everything. And that's what's happening here. So we've got to somehow reach out to some of these people. Again, it's a war of hearts and minds. We've got to help educate and help these people understand you can do more. I mean, there's 10 million jobs available right now, as we speak. They could get, and maybe they're entry level or whatever. That's fine, but gives them a place to start. They got to start believing in themselves. We got to start reaching out to some of these people. Otherwise, they're going to be lost forever. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk more about how this is going to affect our economy and our society and our country as we move forward, and some solutions.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. I'll tell you, if you're looking for me to talk about how your personal bank works and all those kinds of things right now, there's so much for me to unpack to share that I think is even more important. I mean, that's not, but I'm going to encourage you, just go to yourpersonalbank.com, get more information. Feel free to contact me, toll free, 866-268-4422. For more info, I'll be happy to talk to you about how you can gain control, reduce taxes, gain more liquidity, and most importantly, get funds available for long-term care, things like that. Reduce your taxes, if I didn't say that already. And then most importantly, create positive arbitrage so you can make your money go farther. As inflation gets higher, that's just going to be... I know the Federal Reserve says it's transitory. I don't know that I believe them. We'll see. But if inflation continues to rise, getting your money to grow for you is going to be increasingly important. I'm going to talk about that further in the show, so don't miss it. The last thing I want to share about those is really this whole idea of this war of ideas that we're in terms of, are we going to be a society of opportunity or a society of dependency? And like I said, a lot of people blame those that favor socialism, favor the government giving them free stuff, call them lazy and various other things. And yes, there are people who take advantage of the system. I get that. But I think the bigger issue here really is a lack of hope. I talked about that in the last segment. We see that in different segments of our society, and it's just sad. It's just terribly sad. See, the leaders basically, the Democratic liberal folks primarily see a way. They gain votes by giving away free stuff is the way they look at it. I mean, it's a transaction to them. It has nothing to do with the future of our country, what's best for the country, anything else. Again, many politicians, most, not all, but most, are primary focus is to get elected and then be reelected, right? And, if you've got, I've talked about this before, we've had a situation over 20 of our states where if you're a family of 4, you could receive over $100K a year in benefits. That's all benefits, rent assistance, food stamps, unemployment assistance. Earn over $100,000 a year doing nothing. Now, there's a lot of people that work full time and don't make that kind of income. Family of 4, husband and wife, 2 kids. All right, so some of them it's just a financial economic decision. Look, I make more not working. Okay, and so again, some are taking advantage of the system. It's hard to argue with them. The fact that that's even available is ridiculous. Okay. But some of those benefits are going to be expiring soon. So, never fear. Our liberal, radical, socialist government leaders are going to come to the rescue. And how their newest one is increasing food stamps by with a permanent 25% increase. And unfortunately, it doesn't require congressional approval for this because of some little-known rule, which I think is ridiculous, because increasing food stamps by 25%, who pays for that? The taxpayer. And Congress didn't vote on this. This is just an executive or another executive order, right? Isn't that called taxation without representation? I know I didn't vote for Biden, as did many people in this country. Depending on who you talk to, half or more. But no matter how you look at it, a significant percentage of folks did not vote for Biden, yet he's now increased expenditures to folks to make up for losses of benefits they were getting before. That's called taxation without representation. We threw tea in a harbor for that, the Boston Tea Party, our country did. We fought a war of independence over that. That's called the Revolutionary War. We created a country because of that. The claim is, so what's going to happen this time? I don't know. We'll see. I think this vaccine mandate probably have more to do with it. People don't like getting needles stuck in their arm. Hey, I sell life insurance. I know how much a lot of people don't like getting needles stuck in their arm. This one might be a touchstone, if you know what I'm trying to say, as well it should be. But that's another point. They claim this increase isn't required because due to the higher food costs, which is laughable because who created the food prices to increase? Anybody heard of government shutdowns due to COVID? That caused any problems? Remember when you couldn't buy toilet paper in a store anywhere? How about printing money like crazy and spending money like crazy? Upwards of $6 trillion in the last year or so. Okay. Why do you think prices are going up? That's called inflation, folks. Too many dollars chasing goods and services. And here's what's really sick. The USDA. By the way, when I first got out of college, I got an agriculture degree and went to work for the USDA. I worked for them for 6 months. Absolutely hated it. I was not cut out to be a government employee. Quickly learned that. I was not going to be a government drone. It was my statement at the time, and no offense to those that are government employees, but it was soul draining to me. So 6 months I got out of there because I knew I just couldn't live that way for 20 or 30 years. I couldn't live my life that way. And I went and got into business for myself and felt like I could accomplish more because I had hoped that I could, right? Anyway, I had belief that I could do more. That's a whole nother discussion, right? But my point is, and I'm not knocking people that are government employees. Don't get me wrong. There's some good ones, and there's a lot that are not. But that's why I left. But the USDA now brags at I love this. They brag there's 42 million recipients of food stamps right now. They shouldn't be bragging about that. That should be a travesty. I mean, for one, the Department of Labor states there's over 10 million jobs unavailable right now as we speak. So about a quarter of those people could go just get a job right now. Okay? But they're bragging that all these people, and they're getting a 25% increase on their food stamp benefits, and they're making it permanent, of course. This isn't temporary. No, we couldn't do that. That would just be, fiscal conservative. That'd be too fiscally responsible, right? We're permanently going to give these people more money. Well, I don't know about you, but man, that sure sounds like a bribe to me. Hey, we're going to give you more this extra money, and then that's 42 million of them, so that's 42 million voters, right? I mean, let's be real. And that's the sad part about it. Those people don't have any hope for something better. They think this is a good thing, and they're probably going to vote for the people that give it to them. So they got built-in 42 million voters, probably 90% of them at least, right? And that's the sad truth. We have to change the like I said, the hearts and minds of people and help them understand you can do better. That you can do more. You don't have to rely on somebody else like the federal government to take care of you. You can do better. Have some hope for something better. In other words, why don't we aspire to excellence rather than mediocrity? I mean, one of the reasons sports themselves is so popular, I think for a lot of people, is the athletes, in many cases, aspire to excellence. And it's very competitive that way. And we respect that and reward that, encourage it, and like to watch it and be a part of it. See, excellence attracts people. Mediocrity doesn't. We should celebrate excellence, not mediocrity. But I'm going to talk about this in the next segment. While food stamps recipients are going to get a 25% permanent increase, Social Security recipients are going to get a 1.2% increase. That's it. Inflation's been a heck of a lot higher than that in this past year. We're going to talk about that further in the next segment and what you can do to help supplement Social Security with its paltry increase and higher inflation. So don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. Well, I've been talking about several things, but I think one of the most important ones is some of the things that our federal government is now doing to help those give more stuff to those that they've helped create a society of dependency. And that newest thing is, of course, increasing food stamp benefits by 25% and making it a permanent increase too. And let's face it, the reason they're doing that is so most of those people will vote for them, and there's like 42 million of them right now on food stamps. Folks, we have 42 million people on food stamps in this country right now as we speak. We have 10 million jobs that are available, not fulfilled. You think some of those people could maybe take some of those jobs? Of course they could. Why are they not doing it? Well, they're getting more money to stay home in many cases. As I stated earlier, over 20 states, you've been able to get over $100,000 a year in benefits altogether with a family of four. That's rent assistance, food stamps, unemployment, all that stuff for doing nothing. That's a problem. That's a travesty. That should not be allowed. And where is all that money coming from? Well, two places. Those who pay taxes, those who actually go to work, fiscally responsible, invest, do things. We get to pay for all this. Paying for a bunch of people, 42 million people, to stay home. Now, some of them have legitimate reasons. I get when you have disabilities and things like that. But the vast majority of them that don't fit that category. The reality is they're either gaming the system because they realize they can do it and they're lazy, as some people state, and they just want the free stuff. Or, I think bigger issue is many of them just don't, they feel like they're victims, they have no hope, they don't believe they can do better for themselves, and it's that lack of hope that's causing them to take the handouts and become dependent, much like the bears did in Yellowstone National Park years ago. When people would feed them, they became dependent on that. The park rangers had to step in and get rid of the bears because they became hopelessly dependent. The same things happen in our Indian reservations, many other societies in our country, and it's just flat out sad. Now, interestingly, they can give a 25% increase on food stamps, yet permanently yet only give a 1.2% increase for Social Security recipients. And we talked about in some of the previous shows how inflation this past year, for example, has increased at record levels. The business rate went up almost 8%. Cost of many foods went up 40% in the last year because of all the government spending and the shutdowns. Yet, 1.2% increase in Social Security. Well, why can that be? Well, years ago, the government stopped counting food and energy in the cost of living increase for Social Security, which happened to be some of the biggest expenses, particularly lower income folks have, particularly low Social Security recipients. So the folks that probably need it the most are getting it the least. And the really sad part, and I talked about this in the last show, so I want to encourage you to go back to it at yourpersonalbank.com if you missed it. You can listen to any of the previously recorded shows. But I was talking about a recent article that Senator Joe Manchin wrote in the Wall Street Journal, and we posted this on our website, so you can go to it, read it if you want, if you don't have the Wall Street Journal. Pass it on, whatever. This is an incredible article he wrote, and the title is Why I Won't Support Spending Another $3.5 trillion. In this article, Senator Manchin points out, he says, the Social Security and Medicare trustees have sounded the alarm. They have stated that Social Security benefits could start being reduced as soon as 2026 for Medicare and 2033 for Social Security. Folks, Medicare, that's only 5 years from now. In other words, and 2033 is not that far down the road. And that's assuming that our federal government doesn't spend more money than it already has, and it spent almost $6 trillion in the last year or so on COVID response. My point is simple. If you are receiving or planning to receive Social Security as a supplement to your retirement, that's something you're counting on. You may not want to count on it. You need to plan accordingly. One of the best ways to do that is get your money to work for you further, better, faster. You want to get positive arbitrage, and your personal bank accomplishes that. You can increase the rate of return on investments, you can increase your liquidity, and you can reduce your taxes, which means you have more money to spend, more money to live on, which is very important, especially if Social Security and Medicare benefits do get reduced in the future. Look, they're going to have to do something, and this is something we're going to talk about here, I guess, in the next segment, because we're coming up on a hard break, is how is the federal government going to shore up Social Security and Medicare? Or are they just going to allow them to become insolvent and benefits start being reduced, as the trustees are stating? Well, there's a couple of ways they're going to do that. Stay tuned in the next segment, and I'll talk about those very issues.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, let's wrap this up today. Your Personal Bank Show. We're talking about, an article that was written by Senator Joe Manchin recently, which does give us reason to hope that the government may not spend as much as, certainly what Biden wants to spend. There's a title of his article is Why I Won't Support Spending Another $3.5 Trillion. It was an op-ed piece he wrote recently in the Wall Street Journal. You can go to our website, yourpersonalbank.com. We'll post it there. If you don't have access to it, you can access it, pass it on. Really encourage you to read this. This is coming from a Democratic senator, a moderate, one of the few that admits he's still one, is eye-opening. It gives us reason to hope that there is a positive future for this country, for fiscal conservatives. I'm not saying that Senator Manchin's a fiscal conservative. He's not, but there's hope because even folks like him are starting to say, enough's enough. And that's where that's where our future really lies. Our fiscal conservatives aren't going to change who they are. I say that all the time. The folks who support socialism, which is the majority of the Democratic voters today, they're not going to change who they are. It's the people in the middle. It's the moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, and independents that they start realizing, you know what, enough's enough. We can't keep going endlessly spending and not cause problems. That's where things will start to change. And these attacks on personal freedoms and everything else that are happening. But one of the key things that Senator Manchin talks about in his article, he states, and I quote, Social Security and Medicare trustees have sounded the alarm. They've stated that these programs will be insolvent and benefits could start to be reduced as soon as 2026 for Medicare and 2023 for Social Security. Folks, for Medicare, that's 5 years. And Social Security, 2033, that's not that far in the future. Okay, so if you're relying on Medicare or Social Security or expecting to receive some of those things, the trustees themselves and Senator Manchin are stating these programs are going to be insolvent and benefits could start to be reduced. Now, they're going to start paying less, or they're going to have to do something to raise more funds to maintain the benefits. And what do you think that would include? Most likely more taxes, right? Also could print more, which would then create more inflation, which again is a double-edged sword. So here's the thing. What do we do to help offset this? Well, one of the biggest things you can do, I'm telling you, is look into yourpersonalbank.com or look into your personal bank. Because what it does, one, reduces taxes. You can grow, access, and pass on money tax-free if it's set up correctly, which we do, of course. You can increase your rate of return through positive arbitrage. So if you're investing somewhere, I've got 2 clients I spoke to today. In both their cases, they're investing in notes and some real estate investments. One's getting 7%, the other's getting a 9% return. And I made a statement to him, would you like to increase that return by 2.5%? And the answer was, of course. So I said, look, you can continue to do what you're doing and invest in those particular investments and get those returns, or you can fund a policy, access the funds from the policy through a bank line of credit. Actually, you don't get it through the policy, you get it through the bank line. In both of these cases, they're getting 2.5% positive arbitrage. So now their 7 and 9% return investments are now 9.5 and an 11.5 return. Why is that so important? That's each and every year. Compound interest, higher return, more money. By the way, the portion that's from the policy because we set these up correctly, happens to be tax-free. So they've reduced their taxes on this money too, which means they get to keep more. Folks, if Social Security and Medicare benefits drop, people are going to have to replace. Many people are going to have to replace those, or they're going to raise taxes to try to replace those on those that do earn. So either way, whether you're receiving the benefits or not, whether you're counting on the benefits or not, this is going to most likely affect you. You need to make sure you reallocate some of your money to ensure that you've reduced the taxes on it, that you've increased the rate of return on it, and keep the safe. And we also have no market risk, guarantees, all that kind of good stuff. Make sure all that's in place so that you can continue to supplement retirement, right? And by the way, in both of these cases, in case you think you might be too old to do this, in both of these cases, these clients are in their mid-70s. And the numbers work. They still work, and they're working well. In fact, in both cases, they were previously looking at investing in annuities. And I'm not against annuities. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. They have a place. They can create a guaranteed income stream. But the personal bank gives them more money, more liquidity, less taxes, and positive arbitrage, and funds for long-term care type of expenses if they need them, and a death benefit to boot. In both cases, they're married, so we looked at doing his and hers, and if one of the spouses passes, then there's a big check that goes to the survivor, which helps offset future Social Security benefits that would have been received. You see, my point is, your personal bank addresses many, many of the issues the Senator Manchin and the Social Security and Medicare trustees are bringing up, saying, look, these programs that have been around now for decades are approaching insolvency in the near future. Medicare as soon as 5 years, and Social Security not too much longer after that. Okay? So counting, it goes back to my bigger picture. Counting on the government to take care of you just doesn't work. It may work for a while, but eventually it just doesn't work. And I'm going to quote Mike Mullen. He's a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who actually called debt the biggest threat to national security. He is absolutely correct, because our military, our soldiers, and the technology we have are second to none. Now, I know China's been doing a lot to try to catch up, but my point is simple. Beating us in a war is probably not going to be a good strategy for any country in the world, and probably will not be a good strategy for some time to come, even if we go downhill. The way to beat America is to defeat it from within. It's not unlike Rome. Rome, in its heyday, was invincible. America, in its heyday, was invincible. We have swiftly and rapidly allowed radical extremists who hate our way of life, hate our society, hate the land of opportunity, and want to turn it into something totally different, totally unrecognizable, frankly, to what most of us are familiar with. And if they're actively attacking, we don't have a choice anymore to step back and just allow this to happen. I mean, our federal government, Biden is proposing, he did, a vaccine mandate, forcing people to stick a needle in their arms. I mean, what kind of country does that? Communist countries do that. Dictatorships do that. That's not the definition of a free country. So my point is, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information to learn how to offset these potential reductions in Medicare and Social Security benefits that are likely coming, according to the Social Security trustees. This isn't from me. You can also contact me at toll-free 866-268-4422. The sooner you plan, the longer runway we have, the more benefit, the better we can plan accordingly. The less time we have, the more drastic measures that have to be taken to offset these losses of income that very likely are going to happen. And look, folks, here's the other thing, and in Senator Manchin's article he talks about this also. If indeed they do shore up Social Security and Medicare, and they do it through taxes, more spending, however they accomplish it, what that will likely trigger is more inflation, because if the government prints more money, spends more money, that creates an overheating economy, which in essence is a tax, and it's an inflation tax. Senator Manchin talks about this on the average American, average individual. Again, either benefits are going to be reduced in the fairly near future in the next few years, or inflation is probably going to be rear its ugly head. And either way, you need your money to work for you further than it is now to have the same result. And positive arbitrage, I'll finish up with this very thought. Positive arbitrage is one of the most powerful tools you can use to make your money go further. And I talk about this all the time, where we set up a high cash value policy to earn dividends. We got companies who are paying 5.75 dividends or higher, 5.75 to 6% dividend today, still have done so over the last 25 years. I'll show you the charts. Never missed a dividend since literally before the Civil War. I have some of them that have already committed to those dividend levels through 2022 and 2023. Even in this low interest rate environment, they're committing to these dividend levels, have paid them for decades, forever, well, not forever, but, long time, and are committing to that over the long haul going forward. You access the fund, even in this low interest rate environment. Then you access funds from the bank line. And like I said, the most common rate that we're getting for folks is 3.25. It ranges from 3 to 3.95, depending on the amount. The 3.25 is the most common one we're dealing with, which means you get a 2.5% positive arbitrage on your money. And even if you're getting 10% return on your money, on an investment, a 2.5% increase is a 25% increase on your rate of return. Folks, a 25% increase is huge. Heck, ask the people who are getting food stamps, the 42 million people that are receiving food stamp benefits right now, even though there's 10 million jobs available, and they're getting a 25% increase. Folks, they're pretty darn happy about it. I can't blame them, right? Look, a 25% increase on the rate of return on your investments is just as huge. You can accomplish the same thing on your own without the government, without relying on politicians and hoping and praying they're going to take care of you, quote unquote. Look, they're saying themselves, Medicare and Social Security are becoming insolvent soon, in the next several years. So we need to pay attention to what they're saying and do something about it. Plan accordingly, adjust accordingly. So again, contact me at toll-free 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to talk to you about it and share with you how this can work and enhance your financial situation. I guess the last thing I want to finish up on is this. As frustrating as all these things are, as infuriating as it is that we have people, leadership, our government, wanting to encroach themselves on our lives, when really throughout human history, what is the average person? All they've ever really wanted is to live in peace. They want to raise their family, go to work, run their business, and lead a quiet, peaceful, and happy life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? It's in the Declaration of Independence. That is all that most of us has ever wanted. And it's infuriating. We just want to be left alone, right? It's not that complicated. And it's infuriating when we have governments that are dictating we wear masks and dictating that we have to take a vaccine and spending our money without our representation. We're supposed to be a representative republic. It's infuriating. But we have to stand up or these freedoms are going to be taken away from us. As always, stay tuned to the Your Personal Bank show. And I'll look forward to talking to you next time.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.